everyone, and welcome to this episode of Senior Travel Adventures. This month, we have a really exciting episode. We're going to visit Venice, Bologna, and Vinci, Italy, the home of Leonardo da Vinci. And I had a lot of fun visiting these places, and it's going to be a little bit different because we are going to do it more like a slideshow so that you have the ability to see all the beauty of these places in full screen. So stay tuned. Hi, my adventure this episode is my recent trip to Italy, and it didn't disappoint. After a few flights and an upgrade to first class, which is always appreciated, my first stop was Venice. Venice is a living masterpiece floating on water. As a solo traveler, I discovered that this ancient city offers something truly special, the freedom to wander at your own pace while being constantly surrounded by centuries of breathtaking history and art. I decided I would spend a little extra on the water taxi from the airport. Here's where they pick you up. It wasn't exactly the experience I'd hoped for, though, as we were packed in like sardines. They crammed us in with all of our luggage, and it was very claustrophobic. I was able to catch a glimpse of some of the buildings as we made our way up the canal to my drop-off spot. The gruff captain thought that I could navigate a 3-foot jump from the boat to the dock. No, that's not going to happen. He finally got me a little bit closer, but I really thought my first experience of Venice would be a swim in the Grand Canal. I was dropped off and I made my way up this walkway to the Hotel Saturnia. This is a historic family-owned property. Although my room was a bit dark and noisy, as you can see by where the arrow is, the breakfast croissants made up for it. Whenever I arrive after a long overnight flight, I make myself stay awake until the late evening. So I began walking around and checking out my surroundings. As I was near St. Mark's Square, here is my first impression. Napoleon called St. Mark's Square the drawing room of Europe, and experiencing it throughout different times of the day revealed its many personalities. By the afternoon, the square pulses with life, street musicians, tourists, locals, creating a symphony of human experience. Although you can't really see it in the rainy picture, there are scaffolds about 2 feet high all around the square. With climate change, the high tides have been producing much more rain and floods in the square. They installed these to allow for people to not have to walk around the square in the deep water. Here's a first glimpse of the gondola service and a little more of the square. And of course, the palace. The Campanile Tower offers a new perspective. Venice spreads out like an intricate puzzle from here. It changes appearance throughout the day with the weather and the sun. This is more of the same, and it was quite beautiful. Then it was off to the canals. So incredible to think about how this city was built and existed all of this time, built on this marshy land. Most of the bridges were filled with people, and several had these ramps as well, which I thought was great. But I don't know if it was for accessibility or just for more room for walking, because not all of the bridges had them. After wandering around the square, I built up quite an appetite, and no Venetian experience is complete without the ritual of your first gelato by the water. Across the water from that area in St. Mark's Square, you'll find the islands of Giudecca and San Giorgio Maggiore, both offering stunning views of the city. Everywhere you looked, it was beautiful, and the time of day changed the perspective. The cafes that lined the square featured small bands playing music from early morning to late in the evening, and even though it was a bit cold and rainy, the band played on. As I walked along, I saw cafe after cafe like these. It was early, so it wasn't too busy, but later on they were filled with people, food, and fun. I picked one to enjoy my first aperitivo, and this Aperol Spritz became my celebration of my first day in Venice. I was fortunate to find a beautiful waterfront location and actually met a young woman from the US on a holiday who was studying in France, and we had a great conversation. After that, I continued walking all over the place and decided I wanted a little snack. So I found a store and took this back to my room to relax and enjoy before a good night's sleep. My first major stop the next morning was the tour of the Doge Palace and St. Mark's. Walking through these ornate halls alone allowed me to truly absorb the magnitude of Venetian power. The intricate details of the building were amazing. You can stand there for a long time just taking it all in. And as an art history lover, this was a treat for me. The Doge's Palace, originally built in 810 and then rebuilt in 1340, was extended and modified in the following centuries. But after a major fire in 1577 and reconstruction, it finally became a museum in 1923. As our guide brought us in, I saw the golden staircase rising before me. The intricate ceiling frescoes were telling stories of maritime dominance and the Hall of the Great Council. I imagined the deliberations that shaped Mediterranean history. The Bocce di Leone, the lion's mouth, were essentially letter boxes or complaint boxes where Venetian citizens could anonymously deposit written denunciations or accusations against individuals suspected of various offenses. These range from trade disputes and tax evasion to more serious charges like corruption, treason, or conspiracy against the state. The Council of Ten, known for its ruthless methods, including interrogation and torture, would investigate the accusations and determine the fate of the accused. The palace also housed courtrooms, prisons, and interrogation chambers, where they were all investigated and judgments were carried out. Here are the carvings in a few of the original cells. The Bridge of Sighs, connecting the Doge's palace to the prisons, represents the final sorrowful passage of prisoners who are convicted on accusations made through the lion's mouth. A masterpiece of Gothic architecture, the Doge's Palace is an impressive structure composed of layers of building elements and ornamentation from its 14th and 15th century original foundations. The palace included government offices, a jail, and the residence of the Doge of Venice, the elective authority of the former Republic of Venice, depicted in this picture. The styles from carved wooden panels to elaborate fresco paintings, these ceilings were created by renowned artists like Titian and Tintoretto and depict themes of Venetian power and mythology and the life of the Doges. The clocks in the Doge Palace in medieval Europe were significant as they served as symbols of the city's power, wealth, and technological advancement. Interestingly, the clocks didn't always depict time, but some had things like astrological signs. This artistic work, painted by Del Fiore in 1415, depicted a marching lion facing left, and it became the inspiration for the flag of the Veneto region. It was said that the artist had not seen a real life. One of the most dramatic events in the history of the Doge's Palace was the fire of 1577, which destroyed much of the building, including many artistic masterpieces. Here's a piece of the original wall. Our next stop was St. Mark's Basilica, and it was like entering a jewel box. The golden mosaics covering every service created an otherworldly glow. St. Mark's features an impressive collection of mosaics covering an area of over 8,000 square meters. The lights are turned on each day from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. to protect the tiles. The Palla d'Oro altarpiece with its thousands of precious stones demanded careful observation. These Byzantine-style mosaics, developed over 8 centuries, depict biblical narratives and Venetian history, including key religious figures and city stories. The altar was quite striking. The visit was more than breathtaking, as spirituality shows its face in many ways within the church. Next on our tour was the gondola ride. I initially hesitated about the gondola as a solo traveler, but it was part of my tour and my concern was alleviated. Fortunately, each one can only hold 4 adults, so I was paired with a couple from Colorado and their young son. It was great to see the lively activity as we made our way. The gondoliers talk to each other as you float by. Gliding through narrow canals barely wide enough for the boat, past washing lines strung between ancient buildings, under countless bridges where local paused to wave. This was Venice. Some of the gondolas were quite ornate. My next tour was a boat ride to Murano, which passed several areas of Venice as we rode the waves. This offered a different perspective, Venice receding in the distance. A glimpse of Murano from our boat. Murano, as you may know, is known for its glass. Their glassmaking tradition spans over 700 years, and watching a master craftsman transform molten glass into delicate sculptures was quite mesmerizing. Here they were telling us about the process. This looked pretty hot and dangerous. This gent brought out a piece of molten hot glass and began twirling it. Within a few short minutes, he had created this horse statue. Quite incredible to see this go from that blob of glass to a sculpture. They didn't allow cameras in the many rooms of glass sculpture, but I snuck this one. I love the painting by Munch, so of course this drew my eye, but way more than my pocketbook could handle and far too big and fragile to put in my suitcase, so he had to stay behind. And then we got back in the boat and were off to our next stop, which was Burano, another island of Venice. If Murano celebrates fire and glass, Burano celebrates color and thread. The journey there revealed how each island in the Venetian lagoon has its own distinct personality. As we approached, there were several young men in small boats who were in training to be gondoliers. Burano's rainbow-colored houses reflect perfectly in the still canals, creating a living impressionist painting. I really enjoyed walking around just looking at the houses. The rain seemed to make the colors pop even more. The lace-making tradition here fascinated me. Watching this woman create intricate patterns with thread so fine it seemed impossible. Those were actually little gondolas. This craftsmanship is becoming increasingly rare. She is one of the last few there to continue the hand-making craft, which is sad. And of course, all that walking built up an appetite for gelato. This was chocolate pistachio, and quite good and messy. But of course, I never did have bad gelato in Italy. So my Venice visit was quite too short, and there was much more to see. However, I was very brave this time and took the water ferry with my luggage to the main train station to head on to my next stop, Bologna. Sailing down the Grand Canal is like taking a slow motion tour through an open-air museum. floating past palazzos where Casanova once charmed his way through society, passing under the Rialto Bridge with its bustling market energy. Each stop revealed another layer of Venetian life. The floating city proves that some destinations are meant to be savored slowly, personally, and with the kind of wonder that only comes when you're free to let Venice work its magic on you. One canal, one bridge, one spritz at a time. And I will go back to experience more of that beauty and magic. Arrivederci, Venetia. Until we meet again.
The Laguna Woods History Center has been capturing the legacy of our community since 1977. As a nonprofit dedicated to preserving today for tomorrow, we collect, conserve, and share the history of Laguna Woods Village, the city of Laguna Woods, and the surrounding Orange County region. Step into the past and connect with the present at your community archive. Visit us and find your place in history.
After leaving Venice on the train, my next stop was Bologna, Italy, a city that captures your heart from the very first step. Known as La Rosa for its distinctive red brick architecture, Bologna is a really wonderful place steeped in history. I'd like to take you through my wonderful journey in this magnificent city. It started with my stay at the Hotel Commerciante, which was a perfect choice. This beautiful boutique hotel sits right in the heart of the historic center and dates back into the 13th century. The moment I walked through the doors, I knew I had made the right choice. The lobby had whimsical displays, such as this one, a beautiful sitting area with a beautiful harp, displays of modern art, a dining room, which was beautiful but unused, and a giant Easter basket. My room was quite comfortable and roomy and very well decorated and overlooked the church, which was really great after the noise of Venice. Each morning they had the traditional breakfast, which in Europe consists of meats and cheeses, and you can see my prosciutto right there, which of course I loved. Was topped off with a beautiful cappuccino while I made plans for the rest of my day. Of course, I had to visit the Basilica of San Petronio, which was built in 1388 and finished in the 1500s. History says they ran out of money, so the outside of the church was painted to look like the ornate marble of the other basilicas, and that's what you see in the bottom. Inside was a much different story, though. It was quite beautiful with ornate displays. The ceiling was magnificent. Of course, you have to go see Neptune's fountain in the square, and it's said that that Maserati emblem came from his staff. You can't forget the twin towers, of course, Garisenda and Asinelli, which are commonly recognized as Bologna. More in the square. You can see the church in the edge there. It was very busy. My next adventure was a delightful experience, a journey to San Luca on the tiny tourist train. The train took us through the city, through beautiful neighborhoods, churches, and even past the retirement home for Italian actors. And then we went up by the portico, which people have walked up. It's about 3 miles long, and people walk it all the time. And then we saw this magnificent basilica, which overlooked the city of Bologna. They say that it stretches, and on a clear day you can actually see all the way to the Alps, but as you can see, I did not have a clear day. Then the Sanctuary of the Madonna inside was quite lovely. You can see the ornate gold detail, the stained glass windows, the beautiful altar. Quite lovely and peaceful. And this little card just embodied Italy to me. So, of course, I had to take a picture of it. And then I went to look at all the porticos. They're famous in Bologna for porticos. There's about 112 of them. Obviously, I did not get pictures or have the time to see them all, but I think it would be great fun to go on a tour that included walking through and learning more about the porticos because they certainly were quite ornate, as you can see here. And this really, really awesome clock. Then I headed over to where there was a lot of different outdoor dining, and I chose Simone, which was a perfect choice. The waiter showed me a delicious wine, a Sangiovese, that was from local vineyard. And then, of course, I had some delicious meat and cheeses, all local. And I met a lovely couple from Switzerland, Yves and Katrina, and we had a wonderful conversation. That's one of the things I really enjoy about solo travel is all the people that I get to meet and talk to and learn about where they're from. And then I enjoyed this beautiful outdoor meal the next day, which was really nice. And of course, a tiny tiramisu. That's in an espresso cup. But of course, I had to find gelato, and this one did not disappoint. Cremeria La Vecchia Stalla. Absolutely delicious. And my first gelato there was not my last. But the lines were very, very long, but that just goes to show how good it was, and it was worth the wait. Of course, then I had to find the markets because I love markets. So inside there were big meats hanging. That was prosciutto, giant wheels of cheese, Parmigiano, a lot of different meats that you could get, and of course, fish, and more fish, and even more fish. And of course, the beautiful, beautiful displays of the fruits and vegetables. The color, the smell, it was just lovely. I just love a good market. And this one was small, but very well done and included some baked goods. And not to mention flowers, because I, of course, also love flowers. I was fortunate to be there on Good Friday where I was treated to this lovely concert. Please enjoy. And then there were a lot of street musicians, and I stopped to listen to them as well. This young man was very into it. This young lady was excellent. She was playing on the square. And this gentleman was playing his sax down one of the side streets. And then it was time to bid arrivederci to Bologna, and I took the high-speed train headed towards Montecatini, my next stop.
In all stages of life, you care for those you love. With Band-Aids on scuffed knees, with home-cooked meals, with tight hugs and whispered words of encouragement on their wedding day. And in this new stage, advanced funeral planning with O'Connor Mortuary is another way to say, I love you. Call or visit o'connormortuary.com to start your pre-plan today.
Although a bit out of the ordinary of my technology discussions, I wanted to talk about what could have been considered technology back in the 1400s. Today I'm taking you on a journey to Vinci, Italy, the birthplace of one of history's greatest minds, Leonardo da Vinci. I was fortunate to be able to visit when I recently went to Italy. It's a quiet, charming medieval village tucked in the beautiful Tuscan hills. Walking its narrow streets, you can almost imagine the young Leonardo exploring, observing, and dreaming, setting the stage for his brilliance to come. His upbringing was unusual for the times. He spent a lot of time with his uncle, but his birth father did make sure that he was sent to good schools to extract that brain power that was evident from an early age. One of the highlights here is the Leonardo Museum, filled with models of his incredible inventions. There are flying machines inspired by birds and bats, and an early helicopter design, and even a parachute prototype, centuries ahead of his time. I marveled also at the war machines, armored tanks, giant crossbows, and even a design for a multi-barreled cannon. He had wagons, pulleys, and other tools designed also to improve the lives of the early farmers. But his genius was not limited to machines. He was fascinated by the human body. His anatomical drawings are astonishing. Muscles, bones, organs, all meticulously detailed from his dissections that he performed in secret. He wasn't just studying for art, he wanted to understand how life worked, combining art and science in a way that no one had before. And of course, we can't forget his paintings. Works like the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper aren't just beautiful, they're revolutionary. He mastered perspective, light, and human emotion, blending scientific observation with art in an artistic genius way. Another surprise for me was Leonardo's deep interest in water. He designed systems to improve irrigation, control rivers, and even envision canals and locks to manage water flow. Standing here in his hometown, you realize how much he was shaped by the natural world around him, the hills, the stream, the olive groves. I also visited the Church of Santa Croce, where he was baptized 700 years ago. It's a humble, peaceful place. It's hard to imagine that from this little small village would come a man whose ideas would change our world. Vinci, Italy isn't just a stop on a map. It's a reminder of the power of curiosity. Leonardo didn't limit himself. He explored art, science, engineering, anatomy, hydraulics, everything. He used a type of technology which was far ahead of his time. He reminds us to stay curious, to look closely at the world, and to never stop imagining. Thank you for coming along on this incredible journey. I hope you enjoyed this glimpse into Vinci and Leonardo's world. Now, our segment in our backyard. So, over the next few months, we have outdoor performances at Grand Park in Aliso Viejo, which has music and food trucks. And at Soka University on the campus green, Symphony on the Go, June 25th at 6:30 p.m. Also, something quite special. We have some Laguna Woods residents who are musicians, and they're playing in August at the Orange County Fair. How cool is that? So be sure to put these dates on your calendar. The Feisty Women and the Salt Creek Band. Salt Creek, August 6th at the Hangar Stage at 3:15 p.m. and Feisty Women and August 13th on the Meadow Stage at 2 p.m. Well, as always, it's an exciting episode of Senior Travel Adventures, and I hope that you enjoyed seeing all that Italy has to offer, but not quite done because I have so much that next month we're going to look at Montecassino, which is Tuscany, visit wine country, visit the coast, and more. Thank you so much for joining me today.